Good afternoon and welcome to Primetime at the BU Library. Primetime is a collaboration between the Friends of the BU Library, Academic Affairs, and other offices on campus and celebrates learning in and beyond the classroom of Bethel faculty, students, and staff. We archive videos of past presentations. If you'd like to explore them, you can find them on the BU Digital Library YouTube channel or in the Spark Digital Archive. Join us on Tuesday, December 10th, when Dr. Julie DeHaan, doctorate and professor in nursing, shares how to improve multiple choice exam creation. Today we welcome Clarion journalist Taylor Hanson and Kathryn Kovalenko and Textura journalists and designers Madi, Kremer, and Emma Lovell as they reflect on their experience at an NCAA Division I competition that they went to in November. Take it away.
Thank you so much for being here today. We're so excited to share this experience with you all. So before we begin, we're going to give you a little sneak peek into what our Clarion meetings look like. And this is always how we start them, with a question of the day. And it's kind of a crazy slide, but it's always fun. So here we go. So this is the question of the day. We're going to go around and say our name, our position on the Clarion or Textura, and then we're going to answer one of the following questions, which is our Bethel crush, our favorite directory photo, the worst Christmas or holiday movie, the most cursed thing on your Spotify Wrapped, and who are you struggling to find a gift for this holiday season?
I can start off. I'm Madi Kremer, the Clarion business manager and a photographer for Textura. I'm going to pick the most cursed thing on my Spotify Wrapped, which I'm thinking will be the song Hot Wings from Rio, because I use it as my alarm every morning. So that would be mine.
Awesome. My name is Taylor Hanson. I'm the editor for the Clarion, as well as a writer on Textura. And I'd say that the worst Christmas movie is The Polar Express.
I'm Kat. I'm managing editor on the Clarion, and my Bethel crush of the day is Gretchen McGlynn for sitting front row at our Primetime.
I'm Emma Lovell. I'm the design director for Textura, and my favorite directory photo is the one and only Aiden Penner right there.
Amazing. But now for a more formal slide. This is who we are. This is our LinkedIn profile, if you will. So yeah. Okay, so what is the Clarion? The Clarion is a news source for Bethel University, and we are an on-campus representation of the student voices. However, we are an independent entity, meaning that we represent student voices of Bethel, but not Bethel University as the institution.
And Textura is an ongoing social justice storytelling project, and we collaborate with the design and art department at Bethel, and also the journalism and English department. And we collaborate with local teams across the globe. This past January, we went to Haryana, India, and 20 students went there, and we reported, we photographed, we filmed, and we danced along with the locals there, and created a magazine with all their stories, and also some video and web content.
Yeah, so all four of us went to New Orleans this late November, early October for the ACP, which is the Associated Collegiate Press National College Media Convention. So this convention, it's like part like conference, session, learning opportunity, and then also part award ceremony and looking at the work that college journalists have done over the years. And we're going to share what we learned there.
We'll start off with the conference sessions that we attended. Our trip was funded by the Johnson Center for Journalism and Communication, also with help from Student Life and the business department here. So huge shout out for them for making it able for us to go. And our favorite food that we probably ate while down there was beignets, if you were wondering. Highly recommend those. Starting off with the first session, looked at private schools and public records. So being at Bethel, a private campus, they talked about some of the obstacles that a lot of small universities and journalism face. One of those being that because Bethel is a nonprofit, some of the records that you could get at other schools for certain things that we might want to add to stories are not always available to us because not everything needs to be published as a private campus. And then also looking at FERPA and just privacy there. Once again, things aren't always available to us as we would like. However, we were presented with some opportunities that we might be able to use in the future when trying to look for certain facts that we might want to add to stories, such as any access to contracts that the school might have with government or other public entities that we gain access to, financials such as Form 990s for kind of the top spending of the school, which could be interesting to look at. And then also FERPA being that we can request our own information, and working with students, they can request their own too.
Yeah, so kind of on a similar note, we also went to like a student panel and a conference session about doing good journalism on a private campus, because there's definitely like unique challenges but also unique opportunities that we have. So some obstacles that we definitely like face here happen to be like funding and recruiting. As you guys might know, like our print budget got cut for the Clarion, so we have a lot less print issues coming out. And also just recruiting at a small school can be difficult. And then also it can be kind of harder to find sources for stories. The chilling effect can be more prevalent on private campuses, which is where people feel more afraid to speak up because it's a small school, everyone knows each other. It's a lot scarier to have your name in the newspaper, like everyone knows who you are. But there's also a lot of cool things that we get to do on a private campus, such as like we can lean into faith-based reporting as a faith-based institution, and then other things like we can also look at similar sized private universities around here and ask them about certain like issues and topics and compare and contrast to find more information. And then also just knowing the law, such as like the new Voices law and letter law that are being passed. Here in Minnesota has been passed for elementary through high school schools, like protecting student journalism on private campuses and such. And yeah, just knowing the law as far as that goes.
And then we also went to social media in the newsroom. You can talk about that.
Yeah. So a big challenge that we've had this year, but also in the past, has been like the best way to deliver our content to students. As everybody knows, everything is getting a lot more digital, especially after COVID and the way everything changed. And so this had a lot of good feedback on how other schools are doing it, maybe that have more resources, but also how we can utilize what we do have. Just looking at average attention spans, how they're decreasing, how to get our content in front of our readers in a way that they want. So looking at the prevalence of social media, we know that most college-age kids spend a lot of time there. So being able to bring the relevant stories to them and also break through the noise of everything else that they are consuming. And as we are noticing, our younger audience is sometimes more interested in watching rather than reading. So this year we've been trying to figure out a good way to get the content to them in a different way, such as putting out short-form videos, reels, and also introducing new podcasts to our listeners.
And we also went to another session on digital storytelling. And honestly, this one was really interesting, especially for me and Kathryn, because it talked about the process that reporters go through when starting a new story. And he kind of challenged us to change the system that we go through, and instead of starting out with a story idea and then doing the reporting, we start out with what are the questions that our readers are really interested in that we need to answer through this story? What are the facts that we want to get to them? What's the point that we want to make to our readers through the story? So by answering the readers' questions, we're kind of changing the way that we structure our stories and go about our reporting.
I went to a session that was about creative direction. It was really informative to know that we are also doing some things that they were wanting us to do already. So this process is really about amplifying and supporting the story and kind of being in that process along the whole way and not just at the end. So what this looked like for Textura was on the trip, we were looking at textures and colors that we're often seeing and how we could bring that through the design of our magazine. And also this spring, we posted up all of our pages that we're making, and we allowed it to be a creative process of letting the editors look through everything, add post-it notes, things that could be changed, and just be a whole collaborative process, being open to new ideas and changing things as we go. And really being able to read the stories too, to know what we are going to be designing about, and really leaning into that.
Now we're going to go through the awards that we won during this session, and although we don't do journalism for the awards, we do it to tell true stories. It is always rewarding to get awards, and it's also encouraging to know that we're up against schools like Harvard and Stanford and Michigan and Iowa, and that we're competing against them. So.
Yeah, so really exciting. We won Feature Story of the Year at the ACP convention for the story Sitting with the Silence, which was written by Soraya Kaiser and Alyssa Malion. And this story was published in our fall print issue last year, and it's about Samantha Worm, who was also on staff for us last spring, and about her balancing the grief of losing her father with starting at Bethel and that new beginning. And yeah, and some other schools that placed for that were Texas A&M and Indiana University and Purdue, California Baptist University.
In the same category of feature story, a story that I worked on in India called Low to the Ground got third place. And I worked on that alongside Sebastian Studier, Abigail Bates, Emma Carmichael, and Neelam Gujar. And this was about a working class couple that's part of the lower class system in India and their economic struggle. And it was really sweet to write the story and get to know them, but also tell their story.
We also won second for Photo of the Year. This photo was captured by O'Malley, and she was at this funeral, and it's kind of the spur of a moment. It was when the women were separated from the men, and the women were mourning together as they were experiencing the loss of someone in their community.
We also got an honorable mention in the category of a newspaper spread. This one was done by our designer this year, Claire Peterson, on the story To Her Baby Brother. So looked at the overall page design.
We won 5th place for cover design. This is Birmati. She was featured in the Low to the Ground story. And this was really a process of trying to decide what photo we wanted to use for our cover. We went through everyone submitted a photo. We even went back to reshoot some photos to really capture what we really wanted, which was the color and the happiness that we saw there through her face. And yeah, so this was captured by Abigail Bates. We also got an honorable mention for page spread design. This was Far From Home. This is a story about migrant workers and the rice and brick factories there. It was really cool to experience this. This was a story that I was a part of, that my team worked on, and we are going back this January to film a documentary of this too.
Also in the Best of Show category, so every school that was present at the awards ceremony had the opportunity to turn in either a feature magazine like Textura or their print publication for the school. So we entered Textura in the category of four-year campus, which wasn't split into size of campus. So this one we were for sure up against the big schools with. But out of everyone that presented at the conference, Textura won second place. So we got second right behind University of Miami, but did beat out University of Kentucky, Central Washington, and University of Arkansas. So that was really cool to see our work being recognized somewhere else.
Yeah, and in the same Best of Show category, this one was divided by the amount of years of the campus and the student population. So for your campus, 15,000 or fewer, our spring edition of the Clarion got 5th place.
And we also had a magazine critique while we were there. We were critiqued by the president of the Associated Collegiate Press, so that was a little intimidating, but we showed her the whole magazine and she just flipped through it and was looking at every page and kind of pointing out things that she recognized. Some encouragements that we got was the variety of stories that we shared throughout the magazine, with both the realities but also the empowerment of the people there. The layout of the design direction and specific quotes of the people there featuring Hindi, and also the graphical representation of statistics, kind of pulling the viewer's eye throughout the magazine. And some opportunities that we have are stronger call to action with our digital platforms of more like photos and video content online, and also our accessibility with smaller print.
So what's next? After learning this conference and attending it, how can we improve in our day-to-day? So a question that continually comes up in the newspaper world is print dead? And honestly, I think personally the answer is yes, it is. And so we as a magazine, but also as a newspaper, are trying to come up with new ways in which we can get our stories and information to the student body in an exciting way outside of only print. So this led us to the creation of a newsletter this year, which is called the Clarion Wrap, and it comes out every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. And it's basically a roundup of our best 3 stories throughout those 2 weeks. We have our podcasts in it, including Double Coverage, which is our new sports podcast, as well as No Intro Needed, which goes around and interviews celebs of Bethel. And then we also include our Instagram reel that was fun to make during the week. So that's our newsletter, which is a way that we're changing the game. And then also, we are trying to continue to grow our online presence. As we've said in the past, video content is becoming more and more popular. So we're trying to change a lot of our stories into a video media instead of your standardized 1,000-word story. And along with that, we're just going to continue to grow and adapt and figure out what works well and what doesn't, and be flexible and change with everything as it changes. And we know that it doesn't always have to look the same as stories in the past or as past editors. So.
Yeah, some overall thoughts and takeaways from the convention. One thing that really for us was that we're getting more recognition nationally at these conventions at our own school. And although awards are great, we really just want our students to read this, who we make this newspaper for. So that was one takeaway, just thinking about how can we get our students to read this newspaper and how can we make it relevant for them.
Yeah, and something else that was emphasized throughout the conference is that truth-telling journalism matters now more than ever. It's so easy to see so many sources and be so overwhelmed by different stories and not know what to believe and what's fact-based and what's opinion. And so we want to inform our readers and make sure that they understand the difference between fact and opinion. And we just want to help them grow in their media consumption.
One of the biggest goals that we've had this year is how to best deliver our content to the students. We want to give them what they need in a form that they want it in. So that also was a reason that we created the newsletter. It's an easy way for students to just have that sent to their inbox. You can click on the links. You don't have to actually go to our website and seek it out. But we are continuing to look for the best ways to deliver it on an easy-to-access platter. So just figuring out how to break through the noise of every other thing that comes across your phone screen or computer, and how to best serve our students with the content that we're making.
Yeah, and continue to adapt to the changes of the design world, not be afraid to take risks. We are often, at least for design, you look at the past designs, you're like, oh, I can do that again, it worked well, but continuing to adapt to the changes like that we said with the digital platforms and continuing to stay up to date with that. So thank you for coming and listening. We'd love to answer any questions that you have.
And you can also use these links to see the Clarion as well as our Textura project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was curious about Textura when you are traveling to India. Is the year-to-year the same program, or does it change who you visit and what you do?
That's a really good question. The year-to-year changes. So last year we went to India, but the year prior to that we went to Guatemala. So the location changes. The team is a mix of returners and newcomers, so that kind of changes and stays the same. But yeah, that's kind of the overall view.
The conference you went to in the awards, did you also go to that last year or previous years?
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and had different awards?
Yeah, we submitted to different categories in years past, and the editors from last year went to this ceremony last year, and then we submitted a lot of our content from the spring and fall of last year to this one. Yes.
Your readership, the analytics, that chart, there's one spike that's higher than everything else. What was that story?
Should we go back to this?
That was an opinion piece that was published in November by Aiden Pinner, and it was a story called Uh-Oh, I Voted for Kamala Harris, and that gained a lot of readership on our website because it was an opinion piece, but it was a bit controversial in the information that was presented, but Aiden wrote it really well, and it got a lot of views to our site, so that was a good thing overall.
So encouraging that we can reach students if they really care or are more interested in what we're doing, and hopefully it gained a little more awareness of the Clarion too.
How can the Bethel community support this from where we sit?
That's a really good question. Honestly, just reading and like having a passion to know what's going on at Bethel and supporting these projects, and also tell your friends, tell your family, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we just want people to want to consume media and to want to be knowledgeable of what's going on both in the Bethel community, but also just in the world. It's so important to be aware of the issues that are coming up. So I think just continuing to push that idea of wanting to consume media and news and being knowledgeable in that.
Subscribe to the rap.
And subscribe to the rap.
First of all, I want to say congratulations. I mean, this is huge need to be going against institutions like Harvard, and you know, it's just amazing that you young college students are putting out such a product, and love to trumpet it to the world. The hard work that you do and the courage that it takes sometimes to go against the flow. So congratulations on that. And just a question of my curiosity, who are some of these Bethel celebs that you interviewed?
We've had Lucy Stay on the podcast. She's on the soccer team. We had Eric Cargill, who's involved in Bethel student government and a variety of different clubs on campus. We've reached out to a couple of RAs that are popular, just kind of fun people that you see around that you want to know their stories a little bit.
Yeah, if anyone ever has an interest in writing or designing, reach out to Taylor or Kat, because we are always looking for more people to join the team.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Amazing, thank